Of original content all about male seiyuu and 2D music. From covering the industry's dark side to how auditions work, shedding a light over underappreciated seiyuu and 2D music projects, and often geeking about Soma Saito, or just, and by this time it's almost like begging for Shoya Chiba to make a solo debut, you and I covered a lot in these past 100 episodes. To celebrate this milestone, let's have a simpler episode in which I answer some of your questions, and we have a great time yet again talking about male seiyuu and 2D music. Let's kick off this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge, I'm your host Vanessa, and today's topic is the hand that feeds HQ, so basically SEIYUU Lounge's 100th episode. So this is 100 episodes of this tiny podcast in which I geek about male seiyuu and 2D music. And this is crazy because when I created the podcast, I wasn't thinking about it being a long-term thing for me, so to be here talking with you about a podcast that is 100 episodes old is crazy. So I ran for a month a survey asking you for questions, suggestions of topics to talk about, or even corners that you may want to have on this special episode. And you guys came up with brilliant ideas. Thankfully, or unfortunately, there are no corners, so I will be doing this a little bit even more freestyle than I first envisioned it. So I hope you stick around and you have fun in this celebration. Of course, this is going to be a longer episode of the podcast than all others, for sure. If you are actually listening to this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even Stitcher, you will be missing a lot because this is a viewable episode. So if you can, do check it on YouTube. You will be checking me, of course, geeking about music on camera, more than just voice only. But if you prefer podcast format, well, you will be enjoying it all the same, because this is available also in podcast version, not only video version. So let's kick off with a couple of questions from you. So let's kick off with the first corner. So I asked you if you actually would like to watch or hear something special in this episode. So I asked you for corner suggestions, topics to talk about, and basically anything and everything you thought would fit this episode. Of course, I said nothing crazy because, well, I'm not here to answer to crazy questions and much less to trolling, but let's see what you guys had to offer. So there were a lot of people participating, really. I was not expecting this, so right off the bat, thank you very much for actually caring about the podcast. This is such a small podcast that sometimes I really, and this might not be something that other podcast creators do, but I celebrate each viewer. So if I have 4 viewers in a podcast episode, I'm already winning, because if I didn't speak, I wouldn't have anyone. So that 4 people actually cared about to listen and watch the podcast, or even if 100 watched it, all 100 and all those 4 have the same appreciation, because I know for sure that this is a niche topic, and not many people actually like podcasts, and much less podcasts in which there isn't a high production value with a lot of video and people appearing on professional cameras and the sort. So since I do not have that time and not that money to do that, I appreciate that you guys actually take the time to visit the podcasts and check the episodes when those drop, and check those, of course, that you enjoy the themes, not necessarily enjoy everything. But I would like to know if there is anyone out there that has listened to all episodes, because that would be crazy. So we have, and I'm going to read many of your questions because there were no corners asked, so I have the freedom to actually go through your submissions. I'm not going to read everything because otherwise this episode would be massive. There were over 15 people that participated, so that would be crazy. If some of your questions are rather interesting, I'm going to steal those for an episode, and of course I will credit you, so do not worry. So first question is from Gracia. Everyone that is watching or listening to this episode will know that sometimes Gracia participates on the SEIYUU Lounge episodes. I appreciate it a lot because there are really good discussions thanks to Gracia, and some episodes have come up from some discussions with Gracia. So thank you very much for participating, and let's check your suggestion. So music suggestions. Gracia says, also, I think you've already talked about it, but since I lately mostly listen to 2D music that it's available on Spotify, it could be a nice topic to talk about. How the region blocks and difficulties to buy music affect international fandoms, although most of the times we are not really considered. I feel companies now think we are a good plus for their sales and popularity. So this is a fantastic topic, for example, to talk about in an episode fully about it. But to keep things simple for you, yes, companies do see us international fans as an extra. They do not plan their strategies around us. This is something that I know from talking with managers working in Japan, managers managing SEIYUU and music acts. The international market is not their first priority. It's not even a priority. We are really the side dish in a meal. Some people will touch it, some people will want it, but not many people will be interested in it. And unfortunately, it's like that because I feel they are afraid to break to this market. They believe they can earn enough money within their country that they don't need to put in an effort to attract people from outside. If people from outside or overseas are interested in it, better yet, but that's not their focus at all. And I noticed that when I talk with managers, and it is frustrating when I talk with music labels and they say, well, right now this project is not really interested in breaking through the international market, but when it is, we're going to talk with you. And sometimes those projects never end up breaking through the international market and really fall through, even within Japan. And maybe if they had thought about putting their feet internationally, they may have survived. And unfortunately, some projects went down before they even got the chance to break through the international market. So I see that male SEIYUU in general, and 2D music are not really focused primarily on international fans. You see that, for example, and I say this a lot, especially for those that follow me on Twitter, my personal account, I tend to mock a lot Sakura Music because Sony Music Japan is one of the biggest music labels in the world. I'm not talking about Japan only, and they are extremely antiquated. They believe the Japan market is enough to make a SEIYUU a star. It isn't. And they believe that minimal or simple strategies in marketing are enough to put a SEIYUU in the spotlight. Thankfully, they have the luck of having Soma Saito there that really doesn't need any publicity to sell, but other SEIYUU would be struggling a lot. So I find that way of thinking from Sakura Music, and I could be naming any other music label that isn't really focused in the overseas fans. There are some exceptions. Pony Canyon is one of them. Avex is really weird in the way they approach international fans. They can't sell CDs to us, but they can sell streaming tickets to us. so it is weird how they have that settled. But I believe this is a really interesting topic to cover, and I would love to talk about it with a bit more detail, more so than what I just said here. But do know, and everyone of course watching this episode or listening to this episode, that we international fans are not a priority to them. They make streaming available to some countries internationally, but not all. That's one way to view. When you check that list of countries in which the streaming is available, you notice that they picked all the rich countries, with some exceptions. So you can tell that they are aiming to get the most money possible from those streaming events, but they are not thinking about everyone, even if they have fans in a lot of places. Would it be more expensive to make a stream available to, for example, I tend to say Portugal ends up forgotten, basically, when there's time to announce a live stream. Would it be more expensive to make it available to Portugal? No. It's the same stream, it's the same stream signal, it's the same gear they are using to stream to all other countries. They do not stream it to Portugal because we are considered one of the poorest countries in Europe, so you have that. So music labels are thinking about capitalizing, of course, nothing wrong there, they are a business, and SEIYUU are not even thinking about having fans overseas because they think, well, Japanese is so hard to learn that not many people will be interested in learning it. Surprise, surprise, a lot of us actually have learned Japanese, but they still don't believe it is enough to actually break through. Some are afraid of doing it. It's because they believe they will have to start speaking in English so that people can understand them. Music labels are afraid to having to hire someone to translate things and interpret things, and they are really picky about translations and interpretations, so I believe it will be baby steps for them. But thank you very much for your questions, Grecia, and this is a fantastic topic. For sure I will be talking about it in a couple of episodes. Now, we have a comment by Mao. I do know this handle, I believe so. And they say, I think a very interesting topic would be how versatile SEIYUU can be when it comes to the personal music projects versus their music project jobs they take as SEIYUU. For example, Somasato's solo music versus his counterpart as a rapper in Hypnosis Mike. Well, this is yet another awesome topic. Well, I'm going to steal almost all of those, I believe so. This is an awesome topic, and it is interesting because the thing that first differentiates one from the other, it is the freedom. So when you are hired as a SEIYUU to perform in a project, you are not allowed to do things as you want, unless it is something settled in the contract that because they really wanted you, you have free reign to do what you want. That I believe it is rare, or basically doesn't happen at all. So, for sure, when a SEIYUU is hired for a project, they already know how they will have to sing, or in this case rap, and they can't deviate much from that because it is already settled. The project was created by someone that understands how things have to go. They need to have different types of voices, they need to have different styles of rapping. You can apply this, of course, to music as well. So everything is already settled from right off the bat. And something that was interesting about Hypnosis Mike was that actually Somasato was going to be Ramuda. He actually passed that opportunity to be Ramuda because he wanted to be Gentaro. And I believe it was because of the strain in the voice. He can't strain his voice because of what happened in 2016 with his vocal cords. That's something that you have here that is interesting. When you go to the music career, not all SEIYUU have freedom, and I've said it a couple of times on episodes in SEIYUU Lounge, because some SEIYUU are singing because they are paid to do so. They didn't really want to become singers. They actually became singers so only because their fans want them to become one. So it is really weird because they are not doing it because they love it, they are doing it because fans wanted it and they want to please their fans. I think that's really something honorable to do. However, you can tell that they are really detached from the music they are performing because, first of all, they didn't write it, then they didn't compose it, and actually they were only handed a guide to sing, and that's all. Completely detached when they arrive to sing the song, and completely detached when they leave the room after recording it. So you can tell that when you listen to the music by some male seiyuu, or even seiyuu in general, that they do not have a passion for music. They are only singing because, well, it's another way to make money, and of course, seiyuu are all in it for the money. Of course, that's a primary objective for them. Being a seiyuu is not easy, and some jobs really don't pay that well. But at times you see that there are massive differences between one and the other, but then there are seiyuu that do not have any difference in their solo career. For example, I see Ken's solo career to be really an emulation of what he does in the 2D music projects he's a part of. It's not really different, for example. At least that's the impression I get when you look or listen to, for example, to Soma Saito's music. That is really drastic from one way to another. You listen to the character songs and then you listen to his music, and not only is the music different, but also the technique he uses. Back in the day, in these first 3 singles, he was doing exactly the same that Ken does. The character songs sounded like his solo career, the solo career sounded like his character songs. There was no difference there. So, another good topic to talk about, but I'm not going to extend much here. But do know, Mao, that I'm going to cover it on an episode, and I will be crediting you. Now, we have a comment by Hello, I'm Jay. I'm going to assume that this is actually the name that you wanted, not your presentation, and you are actually Jay only. But either way, welcome. The topic suggestion is, why are seiyuu so adorable? I don't know, depends on how you see them, and depends really on what you are expecting from them. I do find that there is a certain gap between how they behave professionally and then when they are let loose in events, and even when they are doing, for example, music activities in which they have complete control. Depending on the seiyuu, you may find those more or less adorable. For example, my favorite voice actors rarely have something adorable. They are really dorks, just to begin with. They are dorks. But yeah, why are seiyuu so adorable? First, you need to actually check why you like those seiyuu, or if you're talking about all seiyuu and you like all seiyuu. That's something about their gap between being professional and being lively and friendly, when they do not have the pressure of being all polite on camera and following certain ways to talk and directions given both by their managers or even the show's producers. So that's that. So thank you very much. More. NGPile16 on Twitter says the relationships or friendships in the seiyuu industry. This is a topic that I've touched lightly upon because most of the times we as fans have the wrong impression about friendships, right? For example, there's a friendship that is a lot talked about out there, that it is Kaito Ishikawa and Soma Saito. Actually, they are really good, on really good terms as professionals. They are not necessarily friends. They both have said it before, that they don't even share the same hobbies and they barely do anything together. So we as fans have that impression that they are friends, but they are more colleagues that are really, really close and have a really awesome chemistry. That's completely different. So to assess friendships, unless the seiyuu is obviously saying, yes, I'm really close friends with them, A good example would be Junta Terashima and Shunichi Toki. They are close friends, and they have been close friends since they started working together in Tsuki Pro as members of Growth. They have said they are close friends, and they actually do a lot together. But, for example, like I was saying, Kaito and Saito, they aren't really friends. They are really good colleagues with a fantastic chemistry. If you were talking about friends, you would say Soma Saito and Yoshiki Nakajima. That's a way. And you would say Kaito Ishikawa and Yumu Uchida. Those are really friends, not necessarily colleagues with good chemistry. So there's a really nuanced way to talk about relationships between seiyuu. I can't cover these, but I can't say for sure, yes, they are friends. No, we have a perception that they are friends, but maybe they are colleagues with a really good chemistry, that they work together on camera and they work together off camera for the recordings, but outside of that they do not contact each other for anything. So there's that. People will like, or some people like to actually, I'm not really a big fan of that, of shipping seiyuu. I hate that. But there are some people that like to ship seiyuu and things like that, and sometimes seiyuu are really uncomfortable because you are shipping them with someone they have chemistry with, but they are not friends with, and they think, why them? I'm not even a friend of his or a friend of theirs. So that's a topic that I would love to talk about, but I'm sure that cases like Soma Saito and Kaito Ishikawa, Daisuke Ono and Hiroshi Kamiya, those are the well-known friendships, but those are two cases in which there is no friendship. There is a fantastic chemistry of people that work really well together, and they have worked together for years, so they know each other like the palm of their hands, but only professionally. They do not do anything outside of that to classify themselves as friends. But we as fans will consider them friends. So that's a weird topic, that's a really complex topic, and some people will actually say, well, but they are not friends, or actually they are friends with A or B and you didn't mention. So I can talk about that, but it wouldn't be a really objective episode. It would be more my opinion, more so than what is actually real. But thank you very much for your comment. Then we have Carol. If you could talk about seiyus that compose their own songs, or seiyus that came from another career, child actor, for example. If you already talked about it, sorry, too much content and too little time. I like this. No worry, Carol. I'm going to talk about, and I do have that plan to talk about seiyuu that produce and compose their own songs. I'm going to cover that in a couple of episodes. I still have to figure out how to cover that without showing the songs, because I can't show the songs on streaming platforms. I will get immediate copyright strikeouts, so I can only speak about the songs. I can't put previews of the songs. I only can do that on YouTube, and really I will be pushing a lot the copyright laws in there. So I want to talk about these, and because of that I'm not going to directly answer to your question right now, but there is some interesting things there. Basically every seiyuu that is from Imawari was a child actor. Mamoru Miyano, Myuiri no, Kensho Ono, Toshiki Toyonaga, Yuto Emura were child actors. Also child actor was Shoya Chiba. So we have a really decent crop, a really talented crop of seiyuu that have a background of being child actors. Also Ryohei Kimura was a child actor as well. So I can talk about that, and I'll make sure to cover that, even with their almost baby photos that are available thanks to Imawari Gekida. And well, thank you very much for your comment. UFO. UFO says, I'd like to know if you have any personal favorite seiyus and or projects. So, favorite seiyus, the list is too big. Absolute favorites that I do not miss a thing. That's really shortening the list. That is a way to talk about it. My absolute favorite voice actor is, in case you haven't noticed, Soma Saito. Then I am a big fan of Daisuke Ono. He was one of the very first seiyuu I came across, and it was the reason why I started to watch anime again back in 2010, because of Shizu in Durarara. And then I fell in love with Hikaru Midorikawa. His voice, his poise, his perfection in the art of voice acting is something that I love a whole lot, so he's also a favorite of mine. Those would be my core 3 favorite voice actors. But I also love Makoto Furukawa, Yumo Uchida, Toshiki Masuda. It's really hard to make a short list, but I would say these 6 are my favorites, and I love their work. I would also add Ryohei Kimura in here because his acting is all off the charts and he can do a crazy amount or a crazy variety of characters. Toshiki Toyonaga as well. Well, the list is going to get insanely big. So you have Soma Saito, Daisuke Ono, Hikaru Midorikawa, Toshiki Masuda, Yumo Uchida, Makoto Furukawa, Toshiki Toyonaga, Ryohei Kimura. Well, there's a lot of people. I also like Shoichiba. I've been enjoying a lot his work as of late, so too many people really. I do love a whole lot of seiyuu. That's something that when I say that I do not write content because of one or another seiyuu, it's because I love a lot of seiyuu, and it's hard to not be a fan of their work or their passion or their enthusiasm. Or I just remembered I also like Takuya Sato, so well, and Wataru Hatan. The list keeps getting. No, I'm going to stop here. This list is going to get really big if I continue to talk about my favorites. I love a lot of seiyuu, so you can, in a way, understand it when I'm reviewing the songs. For example, on the website, you notice how I pick more detail on some voices than on the others. Most of the times it is because I am more used to listening to them than other seiyuu. And if I have any favorite project, I do love Kashikomi a whole lot in terms of a seiyuu project or a seiyuu unit. I love Kashikomi. I believe they are the best seiyuu unit currently active out there. I love their sound. I love their quality on the vocal end. I feel like it is strange how they are not appreciated more, because Shonogami and Shoichiba are really talented and they deserve more eyes on them and more years on them. Unfortunately, they do not have it because it's Marine Entertainment managing them, so they are not focused on making them big. They are thinking about their music as music from a radio show, not only music that can be sold standalone. A bit like how THT were doing, and now they are doing something different as Trado. So you have that. I would love to see Kashikomi venture as a full group, more than just a project coming from a radio show. More. I do like You Make quite a lot. Not all, I wouldn't say all their songs are good, at least in my standards. I like the fact that they, Kentito and Yoshiki Nakajima, take the time to compose their songs, to write their lyrics, to actually create something from scratch and deliver it to you, or to all of us. And they go as far as being there for the production of the CDs, which is pretty awesome. Another project that I have been liking a whole lot in the last couple of years, it's Sir Vanity. I see the potential for Sir Vanity to actually replace, in a way, the empty spot that old codecs have left in seiyuu music. I'm not saying they are going to replace completely, because it is impossible. Those are completely different styles of rock music. But I like that we finally have a rock band that is exciting and that isn't locked to a music genre. And, well, they managed to snatch one of the best composers in Japan to work with them, Satoru Kuwabara. They are not my favorite band, of course. That would be Gran Rodeo. But I like the project, and I would like to see where this is going, especially because the band is not tied to a music genre, so they can do literally anything they want, and it will be pretty awesome. More projects. If you are talking about projects that are not tied to music, I did enjoy a lot the Daba, Project Daba. It was an entertainment or almost variety project that included all SEIYUU, it were 7 or 8, I don't recall the number, SEIYUU that were born in 1978. We're talking about SEIYUU that were born in the year of the horse. Daisuke Ono, Takayuki Kondo, Junji Majima, Jun Fukuyama, Shinosuke Tachibana, and I'm missing a couple of names here. Well, Hino Satoshi and Suganuma Isayoshi. I believe it is the whole cast, and if it is the whole cast, well, I need to clap for myself, because it's been a while since I listened or watched anything from them. But Daba is no longer around. It is a project that ended a couple of years ago. But I found all their contents to be hilarious. It was really something I loved a whole lot, and I would love to see more SEIYUU creating this kind of synergy. Zan says, a music genre that will suit some of the SEIYUU that you're currently anticipating their solo debut. Metal, Shoyochiba. R&B, Yuya Hirose. Rock, Yoshiki Nakajima. Those are the 3 SEIYUU I am anticipating solo debuts, but I'm going to add someone else. Arthur Lounsbury, metal. I'm going to say I like metal music, so I would love to see that happening. But I don't. If people people around this SEIYUU start thinking what we like and what will sell, they will get to that crossroads in which they will have to wait. If they want to earn a lot of money, they will sing pop rock. If they want to be true to themselves and their passions, they will sing metal. But yeah, that's that. I would love to see Shoyochiba performing metal or rock music, actually playing the guitar in those songs would be awesome. And I would love to see as well Arthur Lounsbury performing metal or even visual kei style of music. Well, visual kei rock. Yuya Hirose really performing R&B. Oh, I was forgetting someone. Shun Horie performing. Oh. He's actually got a really versatile voice. So maybe R&B is technical, but then you would get into a loop of pop music and that would be bad. Well, R&B. We have Yuma Uchida performing R&B. He's the only SEIYUU that performs R&B pop. Why not having someone else performing R&B pop? But I would love to see Shun Horie performing R&B and jazz in some way. So there's that. Yoshiki Nakajima, of course, rock. I can't imagine him performing any other style of music. When I hear him performing pop music or even electronica for 2D music projects, he always sounds out of place. It is weird as hell, but he's one of those SEIYUU that really sounds uncomfortable performing music genres that he doesn't enjoy. So I would love to see him performing rock and perhaps actually playing the songs. Thank you very much for your comment, Zen. Maki, welcome. This is a name that I actually know, unless it is another person using your username, so I'm not going to police these. Maybe something about the current trend of assigning different music genres to different units in the same franchise, I don't know. Well, this is not a recent trend, Maki. There have always been 2D music projects with, of course, they're always. I'm going to retcon what I just said. Since 2015, prior to that, all projects had everyone performing pop music. There was nothing different. But for example, you have since 2015 a whole lot of 2D music projects, and you have 2D music projects in which each group has a different music genre. Why is that? To cater to different music genres, different people. For example, within Idolish 7, if you say that you have Idolish 7 that perform pop, you have Rivale that perform electronica, when they started at least, then you have Trigger that have a really aggressive style of electronica with pop, and you have ZEIYUU with rock. My first instincts were, well, I like ZEIYUU because I'm a person that loves rock the most, so I was more interested in their music. And that's because of that you have groups with different music genres. You ensure that people that wouldn't normally like the main group, because it's going to be, of course, a bubbly pop group with uplifting songs. For example, I do not enjoy uplifting songs. That's my style. Maybe I'm still the emo I was almost 20 years ago. But there's that. There are different people that will interact with the project, and they will be expecting different things. Maybe you are expecting, for example, bubbly pop, but I, on the other side, I'm expecting for a project or a group within that project that has rock music. That's a way to explain how within the Ensemble Stars franchise, I only enjoy music by Undead. That's the only group that I can genuinely say I enjoy their music. The others not so much. Maybe Nights to some extent, but the other groups I do not enjoy their music because I do not like pop, and I do not like bubbly pop. I do not like Sentai themed pop, and much less pop with, well, characters that sound like shotas. So you have that. Different music genres for different groups. It's because the fans will also expect different things. Not all people will like idol projects. I do know for sure from getting some comments and in some episodes of SEIYUU Lounge that not all people like 2D music to start, and not all people like 2D idols. So if you have an opportunity to not have that, that's why Hypnosis Mic is so big right now. And you have projects like Dear Vocalist in Japan, or even Dig Rock in Japan, getting really big, of course within their niche. It's because people not always like pop music and they wanted an alternative, and there were projects that actually made sure to be a good alternative to all the idols there are out there. Of course, many of you listening or watching this episode would say, but I like idols. Yes, but not all people do, and I'm not talking about only the younger generations of fans, but also the older generations of fans. Do not forget that we have fans that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. We have fans like myself in my 30s, so you actually have a broad spectrum of fans in there, and you can't always be serving idols. Of course, the main market for these types of projects are teens and young adults, so that's a good way to sell a lot. But if they want the projects to last long, they need to think about all other fans that do not enjoy necessarily idol music. That's one reason why I drifted away from Utapri, because almost, well, it is over 10 years since it's the first release of music within the franchise. The sound is basically the same. It has been 10 years and nothing has changed. It's still pop, and with some dashes of R&B or jazz from time to time, but well, I ended up drifting away because there was nothing that what clicked with me when I was younger doesn't click with me anymore, and projects need to think about that. What clicks with a fan right now will not click later on. How can I retain that fan for longer? That's a challenge. So there's a really good point that you make here with this question, and even if you said you didn't know what to ask here, you actually brought a really good question, so thank you very much, Maki. Lauren asks, and this is a 4-parter question, so thank you very much. What equipment do you use to record podcast episodes? I can do a list afterwards. I'm not going to name everything because, well, there's a lot of equipment around me right now. But for starters, I do have this Shure SM58. This is a classic microphone. If you see, for example, if you watched, for example, Soma Saito's live, the recent We Are in Bloom tour, that's this microphone that he was using. If you watched Makoto Furukawa's live Kinema, it's also the same microphone. This is a microphone that makes the voice sound a bit lower than usual. It is a really warm microphone, so I do use it for podcasting right now. I was using, up until recently, a microphone like this, but this is a really different style of microphone. This is a microphone that is a cardioid, and it captures sound from from the facing part. However, it captures a lot of noise, and this Shure only captures my voice and doesn't capture any noise at all. So that's a better microphone to record the podcast. I have the monitoring headphones. These are exactly the same headphones you see SEIYUU using to record music and voice. Those are the standard in every single music recording studio all over the world. These are awesome, really. They are studio monitors. So you have the cleanest and clearest sound, no bass in here, so that you can pick any imperfections in your recording. And then I use, of course, a Focusrite sound table to record with this microphone, because this is a microphone that uses an XLR cable, so it needs in some way phantom power. When I'm recording voice, it's all in the microphone, the sound board in a way, the monitoring headphones, and Adobe Audition. That's the software I use. Everything about Audition and all the tricks I use to make the voice sound good or not, and all the music I use, those are trade secrets. But thank you very much for asking that question. So now we have a second one, also by Lauren. How did you first discover the Dear Vocalist franchise? I'm going to be honest, I didn't know anything about it. I just came across it because I was looking for music performed by Soma Saito. As simple as that. I was already a big fan of his since 2010, 2011. I found him to be really hilarious in the 81 Produce radio show in which all the rookies were a part of, but I had yet to click with the way he was singing. He was already singing since 2014. He performed the character song, but really it wasn't really that good. So I felt, well, I'm not really interested in his singing, so I'm going to support him as a voice actor only, until I found, and I believe it was Romeo by Solids, and then it started my downfall, basically. So I started to look for songs in which he was performing, and I found Dear Vocalist for a chance, and it was actually rock music, and he was actually performing rock music performed by Ron, who I was a big fan of. I am a massive fan of Old Codex. So at that time, Ron was, I believe, still a part of Old Codex, or had recently left Old Codex, something like that. And I was really finding their music to be really awesome, the vocals to be really cool, and one of my favorite composers was there, so why not? So the starting point was not from a genuine curiosity. I didn't know what Dear Vocalist was, but I was looking for something that had rock music and Soma Saito, and yeah, I found it. And after finding Dear Vocalist, I actually found Flammy Project, and then I went on that spiral of now basically owning everything he does. But Dear Vocalist was found by chance just because I wanted more music by Soma Saito. Then I fell in love with the stories, and not only I love Judah, the character he voices, but I also love all characters in the franchise. I will say I followed the franchise basically since the start. I didn't like Ciel that much, he was voiced by Ken, but as soon as Joshua replaced him, then I was in my groove. I really love the franchise. I do mock a bit Momochi because of his fake persona and his really twisted way to show love, but really I do love to listen to the music by Momochi, for example, and I love the drama CDs. I was not expecting to find drama CDs in this franchise, and especially drama CDs first with all band members, and then with only you and that vocalist. So I was drawn into it, and this is a franchise I've been following basically since the start. I found it when it was already one CD only had been released up until then. When I found this project, it only had one CD, I believe, available. It was the very first one. That had Escalation, I believe so. Judah, I believe the first song is Escalation, but I'm not really sure. Well, I may be saying something wrong in here, but yeah, it was how I found your vocalist. Has a 2D music project ever led you to learn more about the SEIYUU and projects that SEIYUU is in? Yes, multiple times. Most of the SEIYUU I talk about right now, I found them because of 2D music, and then I went on to check but not all, but many of the projects they were in. I just gave you an example about how I found Dear Vocalist. It was because of Soma Saito. Then I found Fly Me Project, and then I found Yumero Cast, and then I found, well, Ensemble, Idolish, and so on and so forth. So I've done that with a lot of SEIYUU. Shinichi Toki was a good example of that. I didn't know who he was until I heard him in the first event of the Tsuki Pro franchise in 2016, live in Nakano, I believe it's Nakano. And I was watching, of course, Solids. It wasn't the best performance by them. It was really awful, that performance. But when Growth took the stage, I was mesmerized by Shunichi Toki and Daiki Yamashita. Well, what was happening on stage? I had to look them up, and I did. And I'm so glad I did, because I found them. And I fell in love with the way they sing. I fell in love with some of their characters, some of the projects they are in. Usually when they are in some projects, I tend to check, even if those projects are from music genres that I do not enjoy a whole lot. So yeah, I've done that plenty of times with a lot of SEIYUU that I've come across in my 12 years covering male SEIYUU music, and thankfully that keeps happening to me, in which I find the SEIYUU that I enjoy the voice or enjoy the personality, and then I'm going to check all other projects they are a part of, and I end up following the work that SEIYUU is doing for that group, or even falling in love with those groups. So it happens a whole lot, more frequently than most people, because I do believe most people will like one or two SEIYUU and they will not bother to check any other SEIYUU. So given that I have a really long list of favorites, I end up really checking a lot of projects. Of course, I do not enjoy every single project out there, but I do enjoy some. Aside from SEIYUU music, what other music do you listen to? I've said it a couple of times before, I am a metalhead, so metal, heavy metal, visual K-rock. I'm a big fan of almost everything rock related. I do love as well a lot of jazz music, and that's all. Well, it's basically I love rock and jazz, and those are the two music genres that I basically listen outside of, I would say, SEIYUU music. I wouldn't categorize these as SEIYUU music. I categorize music to the music. 2D music is one thing. Music by SEIYUU, many SEIYUU are already considered artists, some of them are already spoken as or titled as a singer-songwriter, so they are already been taken seriously, and you should also take them seriously as regular music. But I understand your point, and I understand why you made that distinction, so that I could talk about something else other than 2D music or SEIYUU music. So metal and rock music are my foundation. I grew up listening to that. I also loved a lot 80s pop music. I do like old school hip hop, the 90s especially. I do not listen to hip hop that has been released in the last 20 years, so I do not care about that. And of course I love jazz music. This is a recent love of mine. I believe it is less than 10 years, but for at least 7 years I've been a big fan of jazz music. And as I've been growing older, I get even more fascinated with jazz music. I don't know why, but it is a music genre that I love. And I do love synthwave a lot, like Depeche Mode, and I love Depeche Mode. Since you asked what other music I listen to, I do listen to a lot of Depeche Mode, David Bowie, more Architects, Bring Me the Horizon, to some extent Linkin Park, and The Killers. I don't believe I listen to many more artists, but that's the extent of the music I listen to. I basically listen to SEIYUU music, believe it or not, SEIYUU music all the time, or 2D music all the time. It's been my life listening to music like this, and I've grown so fond of it that I really do not want to get back to the music that I listened to back in the day. Thank you very much for your questions, Lauren. Judy. Ooh. So I'm going to check your 2 comments because you have really awesome ideas here. You said you would like to see some reflection on yourself and on the SEIYUU or industry, since you've been a fan for 10 years. 12 actually. It's a lot. How has being a SEIYUU fan affected you as a person, good or bad? What inspirations have you gained from being a fan for so long? What were some improvements you've seen in the SEIYUUs from earlier years to nowadays? Would you ever see SEIYUU gaining massive popularity like anime popularity overseas? Would Japan be more open to having content that is friendly for non-Japanese speakers to understand? Do you foresee SEIYUU having overseas meet and greets? Sorry for the ramble. No, you don't need to be sorry for the ramble, Judy. I actually like these types of questions. I'm going to go through all of those really quick, but do know that you've made really good questions, and I'll be going to use some of these maybe to create episodes for the podcast. Reflection about the SEIYUU or the industry, since I've been a fan for 12 years. The industry is really different right now. Back in the day, you valued voice, you now value looks and personality. So many SEIYUU with really awesome voice acting skills are struggling to stand out because they do not want to become singers, or they are not good singers, or do not have the looks that the industry is looking for. I see a difference between then and now, in which now they are looking for idols more than SEIYUU. That's a big issue, and many SEIYUU, including Hiro Shimono, has said that it is weird how SEIYUU now only think about becoming solo artists and do not care at all about the art of voice acting. So we have an issue there, and I do not know if it is going to get even worse with years to come, but it's not looking that great. I now believe the industry is getting harder and harder to get into, especially because there are a lot of SEIYUU, many already really taking a lot of care about their looks, even if they absolutely suck at voice acting, which I must say the recent crop, or the recent batch of rookies that have been debuting in the last couple of years, is not brilliant. I know I had a question here, and I don't remember who asked it. I believe it was L. Sherbet. I'm going to also answer to that question. If I had any favorite rookie SEIYUU rookie SEIYUU to watch out for, I do not like the quality of these recent batch of rookie SEIYUU. They sound like they are really focused on variety and music more so than acting, and their acting, of course, when you're starting out, your acting is not going to be great or fantastic, but they are really subpar in comparison with most SEIYUU that now, 10 years later, are really awesome. But when they debuted, those SEIYUU that right now are stars, they already had more, but much more quality than these batch of rookies has. So I can't pinpoint any rookies that I enjoy because so far none has clicked with me. I don't know how time will tell if some will end up clicking with me, but right now there's no rookie SEIYUU out there clicking with me in terms of quality, both in singing and voice acting. I do not care about the looks, so that's something that I completely throw out of the window. I'm listening to a SEIYUU, I need to listen, only listen. I do not care about if they are handsome or if they are hot or whatever. I need to know that their acting is conveying emotions, and rookie SEIYUU, at least this recent batch, doesn't convey that to me, at least not now. That's the difference that I see right now. Rookie SEIYUU right now are more focused on variety and music more so than voice acting, and I am passionate about voice acting and the ability to convey emotions through voice only and make you connect with a character that is on the screen but doesn't exist at all. So you do not have that right now, and I believe the industry is going to dilute itself a lot, and in a couple of years we're talking about SEIYUU that are really handsome but whose voice acting skills are awful. So we have that. How has been a SEIYUU fan affected you as a person, good or bad? Well, good, I would say. In terms of motivation, coming across SEIYUU actually ended up motivating me to overcome a couple of obstacles in my personal life. So I would say that was a good thing. A bad thing, I would say, being a fan of SEIYUU actually made me sleep less because I want to watch more, one extra video, one episode, another live show, and when I notice it's already morning, so my sleep schedule has been all over the place because of SEIYUU. What inspirations have you gained from being a fan for so long? First of all, I've returned to playing the guitar, and it was thanks to actually Kotaro Nishiyama. I heard Time Machine, the song. I love that song, it's actually my favorite of his, and I just had an urge to pick up my guitar and play again. So I've been playing guitar since since Time Machine was released. So I've gotten a really good habit back thanks to SEIYUU music. In terms of inspiration, I would say, given who are my favorite voice actors, I've been really, I would say, heavily influenced by Soma Saito's literature roots, and I found myself getting more and more interested in linguistics, and because of course if you do not know linguistics you can't decipher Soma Saito's songs. So I've been more and more into linguistics and learning a lot about the nuances of the words and nuances of how the words are written, and I found myself geeking a lot about it. I've also ended up diving a little bit more into marketing for music. I've also started to read more about it, get to know more about it, and how things work really behind the scenes, and what we fans see that marketing is actually hiding, for example. So that's really interesting. I got to I got to learn a lot of things, and SEIYUU music in a way and some SEIYUU in a way ended up inspiring me to pick up the guitar again, to learn more about marketing for music and management even. So it's really awesome that actually a small hobby like this ended up being so influential for me. What were some improvements you've seen in the SEIYUU from earlier years to nowadays? Well, one thing I've seen across all SEIYUU or most of the popular SEIYUU is that many took singing classes. They didn't back in the day, but now they take. Or they have taken in the last couple of years. That's a big difference. But improvements, well, I'm going to talk about two SEIYUU in this case. I'm going to talk about Toshiki Masuda and Soma Saito, just because those are the two SEIYUU that I've seen the most differences from their debut up until now. Toshiki Masuda, as you may have noticed, he was a musical actor, which is to say was a really awesome singer on stage, performing things with really open vowels, power vocals. And when he took a step to voice acting and he started to perform as as characters into the groups, he was awful. It was weird, but he was genuinely awful. And he was like that for a couple of years, until he found his stride in 2016, started to sound good around that time, and now he's really sounding genuinely good. So it took a time to adapt to a different style of singing, because musical acting doesn't use the same things that I would say regular singing or pop singing or singing as an idol has or requires. So he took a time to learn, and he was struggling a lot. You could tell he was struggling a lot, but he ended up finding the right point, the perfect point for himself, grew from there, and then his solo debut was an opportunity to grow as well, and as a perfectionist, he's trying to improve upon improvement, and you're starting to listen to a Toshiki Masuda right now that is eerily close in quality to the Toshiki Masuda that was a stage actor or a musical actor. You just listen to his performance with Eclipse in the Visual Prison franchise, and you are listening to him when he was back in musical acting. So it has come full circle, but in the process he has learned a whole lot, and I like seeing that. Soma Saito is a good example of that as well, but more for the fact that he started without knowing how to perform a character's song, to finding a way to perform a character's song, to make a solo debut performing like he was performing character songs, to actually struggling and then finding his own voice. I love that path because I had the pleasure to follow that path since the start up until now, and seeing him struggle, finding his point, his perfect point, his optimal point as a singer, but slowly getting there, and now slowly honing that skill and getting more comfortable, be it on recording as well as on stage, is something that I am enjoying a whole lot. There are plenty of other SEIYUU that I could talk about that have improved a lot, but these two have left me the most or the biggest impression in these past 12 years. More. Would you ever see SEIYUUs gaining massive popularity like anime popularity overseas? No, because the biggest market for anime is the US, and in the US there are not a lot of people, there's very few people that actually enjoy watching the anime with original dubbing. They like it to be dubbed in English because reading the subs may be a bit too difficult for them, or because they do not feel comfortable reading the subs, or I don't know. But when you have the biggest market outside of Japan being the US, and in the US they give a lot of praise to their own voice actors and they do not care much about the Japanese counterpart, you will never ever get SEIYUU becoming massively popular Unfortunately, no. And that's because the second biggest market next to Japan, and putting China away, because China is a whole different market, you have the US, and the US is all about dubbed, not subbed. So there are some exceptions, and I know some of you US citizens will be saying, but I do enjoy the subbed version because I like to listen to the original dubbing. Yeah, but you know for sure that you are in the minority, so unless that turns out to be something common, I believe SEIYUU will never get to become massively popular. It's a pity because they deserve all the popularity you can give them, because their job is not easy. They are making us live stories through their voice only. It is amazing. Would Japan be more open to having content that is friendly for non-Japanese speakers to understand? This is something that I've been talking about with some people at a couple of music labels. They are not worried about content creating or content created specifically for us international fans. There are some projects that may be a bit more open to us, but focused mainly to us. I don't believe so, and if that happens, it will be the very first time. It will be something really experimental that the creators will be knowing for starters that it may fail completely, because never has a project focused completely on the international market with SEIYUU performing, for example, still in Japanese. But for example, imagine that 2D music project is created only with SEIYUU that actually speak English, know how to speak English, or at least pronounce English. So you would have Gakuto Kajiwara, Shunsuke Takeuchi. It's getting hard to find another SEIYUU that actually pronounces English really well. In a way, Mamoru Miyano, but he doesn't join to the music project, so you can take him really off of that equation. Maybe Soma Saito or Yomuchida. They can pronounce English really well. They, in some way, some of these SEIYUU that I mentioned can speak English. Some do understand, but are not confident to speak it, and others do not speak it at all, but pronounce it really well. So you could have a group that performs exclusively in English. Would that work? Would fans, especially international fans, start to make fun of that? Because I remember when Makoto Furukawa released Room of No Name, there's one of the songs that is performed completely in English, and fans, American fans, I will assume, they were making fun of his English, saying that they didn't understand anything he was performing there. How can a SEIYUU find motivation to perform in English if international fans are making fun of them? Tell me. So they will not focus on performing music for us international fans until we respect them. And there are international fans that do not respect them and make fun of that. Music labels see the comments you write in those music videos. The artist sometimes reads the comments and they see that feedback and they will understand that feedback. Do not think they do not read it. They do. So I'm sorry to say, but I believe there won't ever be a project focused on us international fans, unless SEIYUU get massively popular or some company wants to invest on SEIYUU in a ridiculous way. I do not see that happening, because fans making fun of the English pronunciation of SEIYUU when they themselves can't pronounce Japanese well, it's hypocritical and ridiculous, and in some way makes it so that SEIYUU do not feel comfortable about speaking in English and actually creating content or connecting with international fans. They are afraid, and they have a reason to be afraid, because people do not respect them. They are making fun of them. So there's an issue. Do you foresee SEIYUUs having overseas meet and greets? Perhaps online meet and greets in which they can control the way the content is delivered and the way fans behave, because international fans do not know their boundaries. We know that we have a drought in terms of content or SEIYUU getting to interact with us. Sometimes some SEIYUU appear on those gaming or anime conventions in the US, in the UK, sometimes in France, but not everywhere in the world. So some fans still do not know how to behave when they see SEIYUU in front of them, and that may pose some questions in terms of how to conduct overseas meet and greets. I would say online and with the QE really well made previously online. So those are all the questions that I've answered that you had. Okay, so you have a technical question, so that's the other side, Judy. I'm always curious where you get your news about music updates, new songs releases and upcoming songs releases, music rankings and charts, music awards, etc. What JP sources do you use to keep up with the JP media? Being an international fan makes it difficult to keep up with Japanese media, especially since they use different platforms than us, and it's hard to keep up with everything, especially in a foreign language. For starters, I do know how to read and write Japanese. Spoken is a really a bit weird, but thankfully I have contacts within the industry that send me official press releases in which all the information is there about things that are going to be released, when I have to put the news, instructions of things that I shouldn't write and things I should write. So those have guidelines in some way. And of course I do have everything organized neatly in a list, who are the sources for what thing. It is something that I took almost 10 years to create, so just like you, I'm finding information, for example, in Repotama, or I'm finding information on PR Times, and I'm compiling it. So I am always looking for news, but I have a list that is optimized in a way that I can see what was released recently and what was announced recently, but still I get a lot of times I come across information a bit later because it slipped through my list of updates. But I would say I took my time to see which were official sources, and I tried to get in touch with those sources and get official press releases from them. Of course, it's not easy when you have a website as small as this one, because people do not take your website seriously. Some people will think it is a blog. It isn't a blog. If it was a blog, it would be about Soma Saito only. It is a website. But I need to sometimes compile information, so I do know that this source is really good for this type of news. I will add it to a list on Twitter, or a list on whichever place I want to have that list on, and then I will check it. I do know when information about magazines usually drops, because I've been following the industry for so long that I do know that for example, music is released on Wednesdays and Fridays, always because of the Oricon charts, and I do know that magazines start to be announced 2 weeks before they are released, in some cases 3 weeks before. Covers for CDs, for example, I do know that those have to arrive at least 2 weeks before the CD release. I do know that when a CD is announced, the CD was produced 3 months ago. And there are some things that I know because I've been following the industry for so long, so those end up being automatic for myself. For someone, for example, imagine that you wanted to create a website that is, I don't know, a rival to this one. You would have to compile all that information yourself, like I did, because there's no other way. And then you need to get in touch with those platforms and hope they look at your website and think, yeah, this is professional enough, or yeah, they receive enough people there for us to actually take the time to end up sending press releases to you. Sometimes companies do not want to send press releases to you because they believe you do not read or write Japanese, and they are not going to translate the press releases that are in Japanese for the Japanese market. But there are some cases in which they ask you if you want the English or the Japanese, and I've said that to a couple of music labels. I'm going to name one of those because I'm working with them right now. It's Pony Canyon. So they send me the press releases in Japanese and in English. They send me in both languages. There are other music labels that send completely in Japanese and you have to understand it. And then there are others that send it fully in English because they know you are an outlet that writes in English for an English-speaking audience. So it's not easy. About the charts, I only follow the Oricon charts. When I see something really weird happening to the Oricon charts, that's when I visit the Billboard Japan website to see if that weird thing is happening there as well. A good example was how Regality was #1 on Oricon's weekly albums chart, which was the very first time a CD by a 2D group ever got #1 on that chart. I had to check on Billboard what was happening. It was happening something really similar, although not the same. So domestically it was one thing, and a Billboard that is a bit more ample in scope was not happening the same. But I do check those two lists, those two charts, I would say. I do not have any way to check those unless to actually write the name of the website and visit it. So it's a lot of research that I do, and most of the time when you see, for example, oh, the website doesn't have much content this week, there are no reviews or there are no news, it's because I'm researching for something. That's why there is silence on the website. If I am researching, I can't be creating content at the same time. It's impossible. But yeah, especially a lot of research and a work towards organizing my sources and making sure the sources are the closest to the official or even the official. I do not like to have news from other outlets. I see a lot of that happening on our side. There are websites that copy news from our website, for example, just as they are. We shouldn't do that because when people tell a story, they usually add something to it. So you should go to the source as often as possible, for example. And if you actually want to quote the English version you based yourself on, you can quote it and give credit to that. But please, when you are writing about news, do go to the original source. You want the news to be the closest to the original information that was passed to all media. So we have a question by Mao here, and it is: what do you think we as fans can do as SEIYUU fans to support more SEIYUUs in these music careers from overseas without any Japanese knowledge? For example, Katari, You Make. I'm going to talk about a bit these projects. Katari have a really awesome manager behind them. He's really, really awesome. He's the reason why I got the opportunity to interview Katari. But they, of course, are focusing more in the national or domestic market more so than internationally. So getting their CDs was not the easiest thing ever. You can still find their CDs, for example, on Amazon, Animate International. But Animate International, for example, sells things really expensive to Europe. So if you live in Europe, purchasing a CD by Katari is actually less expensive if you purchase through Amazon Japan than if you do in the outlet that is specifically made for us international fans, which is Animate International. So you have that problem, the prices, how expensive it is to support indie artists. Thankfully, Katari and You Make have formats or have a mindset of publishing their music on websites in which you can actually access and purchase their music. You might have their songs available on Spotify, so that's a good way to start. You can listen to their songs there to support them, but to know that Spotify pays them peanuts for each listen. It's really not a lot of money. It's 1 cent per listen, I believe so. It is ridiculously low, the payout. And you can also try, and I've said before, Ototoy. It is a digital downloads website, Japanese official, that sells music in high quality directly from the artists. And there are some artists that have music there. I do not know if Kataria or You Make have music there, but it is a good way to check when there are indie projects like these ones, or even projects that have low exposure, for example like Kashikomi. You can find their music there. It's not timely, so if the music is released today in Japan, maybe the download will only be available in a couple of months, not necessarily at the same time, but it's a way to support them. What you can also do is watch their music videos, watch their content, leave comments to make sure that YouTube gives a spark to their videos and makes it so that their video is more discoverable. So leaving comments, when people say please leave comments and subscribe, they are saying please make it so that YouTube sees that people are actually watching this video, but more than watching this video, they want to interact with it. When people ask you about comments, it's because of that. So do leave comments on their content. Do not leave comments like, oh my god, this is so hot. That's an awful comment to make. It makes it sound like you are thirsty and that you do not appreciate their art or music or whatever, and you only care about the looks. Please do not make don't make yourself look bad on the web. Really, you're making yourself look bad on the web if you do that. Try to support them. Show them that you are supporting them. They read the comments, especially in the case of these projects that are indie. They read the comments, so do leave them comments and make them know that they are loved. Listen to their music if it is available on streaming platforms, but if you can, most of all, that's where they get their money primarily. Purchase their music. If they have it available on a place like Ototoy or the iTunes store, purchase their music. Really, that's the best way for you to support them. But if you do not have the money, I would say stream it. Or if you can't stream it, or you do not like the platforms in which the songs are available, you can always leave comments in their videos. Make sure their videos have comments. Not spamming comments, but do have comments. Start conversations there. Comment on some detail you have noticed. Make sure that the video gets the visibility it deserves. The algorithm on YouTube will do the rest. So, L. Sherbert, you have a question here. What do you guys think makes a 2D idol or music project really skyrocket into popularity or fame? And what do you think hinders it from getting more popular? A part of your question is easy to answer, the other one I can't answer with clarity. So let's check the easiest part. So what do you think hinders it from getting more popular? Usually it's the marketing plan behind the project. So when you are planning a project, you have a roadmap. For example, the next 9 months are going to go like this. You are going to publish the product, you are going to make a couple of releases to introduce the characters or the groups, and then you are going to hold a cast event, and then you are going to announce a second round of CDs and maybe a live show or a full album, and you have a plan for 9 months, for example. Within that plan of 9 months, you have a couple of objectives. You have to sell a fixed number of copies because the higher-ups want you to sell a lot of copies. You need to have a certain type or number of views in the video with the cast, and you need to have a certain number of people following on social media. Those are things that are defined internally, and it will influence a lot of how the rest of the roadmap will work. Then you have to think how much money the company is investing in that project. A lot of money, it is a short amount of money, how much money is going to be invested in there? There are projects, and I'm going to say these with really a lot of confidence. For example, Hypnosis Mic. The project was announced in September 2017. People were making fun, genuine fun of the project. When they heard SEIYUU and rapping in the same phrase or the same sentence, there were people genuinely making fun of the project. And the project took a lot of time to take off. Really a lot of time to take off. It was up until February 2018, March 2018, that the project started to catch a wave of popularity. Up until then it was struggling. And we're talking about King Records investing a lot of money in this project, this ambitious project, the very first time a project focused on hip-hop was going to take the stage. There was a lot of money there. Their roadmap, the first one, may have been very well scratched completely because those first months were a struggle to get attention. And as soon as they noticed that people weren't paying attention to the project, they were investing, I would say, not a lot of money there, back then at least. They started to invest in popularity, starting to make collaborations, started to bring important rappers to the project. They started to be everywhere. As soon as they bet a lot of money on publicity and marketing, the project took off. So what kills a project, what hinders it from becoming popular? It's firstly the money that was invested in it. You can tell when there is a lot of money invested in it, and you can tell when there isn't any or barely any money invested in that project because of the way they appear. They barely have any collaborations, they barely have an active social media account, or the social media account is only to promote merchandise, which is not all people are looking forward to buying anything, but there they want actually the music, for example. So you need to have a really good plan, a good 1 year at least plan from launch to the other steps after the launch, and you need to have the focus primarily in the first months to have a lot of money invested in there to catch a wave of popularity, and maybe it clicks and works and people will want to join. So you have that. That's a way to hinder a project, is not to invest money in the right time. Another way is because some projects look forward to bringing new talents and fans are not looking for new talents. Then you have the problem with, for example, you have Hypnosis Mic, you have Paradox Live. Paradox Live was announced as a hip-hop project that came to rival that, and fans of Hypnosis didn't want to check Paradox Live because of that, so Paradox Live is less popular than Hypnosis because of exactly that. You have the case with Visual Prison, that is really popular, and Visual Karma, that people made fun of it because the name is basically the same. Copyright-wise, I would say Agematsu has all the rights to take this company, Bandai, to court and demand them to remove Visual from the name, because Visual Prison is known as Visual Prison for something, and then they bring Visual Karma with the same concept, only there aren't any vampires in there. So you have that problem because fans see and are attached to a name or a specific music genre being only exclusive to that project, and then there's another project that appears with the same concept or a similar name and people are like, nah, I'm not going to follow that. I already have one because I do not need another thing that is a copy of what I already love. So you have that problem as well. Then you have the fact that most 2D music projects have a really low-key to almost absent social media activity. You see the profiles only are active when there is an announcement of things to sell or an event. The updates are not constant. If you are constantly appearing on the timeline of the people that follow you, people will remember you. If you are not, people will think, but why am I following this project again? what is this project about, really? So there are a couple of problems there. I would say more on the marketing side, more so than on the cast side. Of course, most people want to see their favorite voice actors in those projects, and when the cast is announced with all rookies, people start to look at it as, I do not know anyone there because, well, they are all new, so why should I bother? Some people think like that. So yet another issue and another point that you have to have into account when it comes to hindering the possibility of getting more popularity. And what makes the popularity skyrocket? Money invested in the right time, not necessarily the good cast. Let's remember this because, for example, Dig Rock has a fantastic cast. The cast has some of the best singers and voice actors in there, but it hasn't invested the same amount of money that Hypnosis Mic, for example, or Idolish 7 or Utapri have, and thus it is less popular. So having the money to make that first push and then earning the money that makes it so that they can continue to push makes a big difference. Not so much the cast, but how the project is handled. And most of the times the companies are focused too much on making money and less on making sure the project grows naturally and that it can last for longer, even if they have to lose money in the first year because they are investing in publicity or marketing in different ways. So I would say marketing, by the end of the day, is the differential between a project that is really popular and a project that is not that popular. It's kind of obvious which ones are more popular, be it in terms of fan engagement or fan activity like creating fan art. I believe you are right on the spot with these. It is exactly, we can notice that from fan engagement alone. I'll say it again, Hypnosis Mic is obvious, Utapri is obvious, popular. Those projects are obviously popular. Idolish 7 is the same, Ensemble Stars is the same, but you can say the same about, for example, B Project, that is losing popularity in the last couple of years, Tsuki Pro, that doesn't have that much popularity outside of Japan, Dear Vocalist, that is really big in Japan but not necessarily outside. So you start to notice which are the projects that are really big to the point that even international fans are really into it at the same time as Japanese ones, and then you have the ones that, of course, you notice that unfortunately something wrong went there because they have a unique story or a unique premise and nothing is working. For example, Perfection Noise is a project that I was really excited about. I loved the premise, I loved the music in a way, and unfortunately it seems that the project won't come back and we won't even get anything saying that the project went basically under the bus. So there's that. So thank you very much for your comment, L. That is as important to talk about. I would say that's something that not many people will pay attention to, and many people will think that the project, well, got popular because it's good. Not necessarily. It got popular because the strategy was good. Some really popular projects do not necessarily have better music than those that are not really popular. A good example of that is the Hanadol franchise that deserves to be more popular because the sheer vocal quality in there really eclipses much of the quality that some of the idol projects that are considered really popular have. So there's a really good point in here created by L. So thank you very much. So Zen asks, what group do you think has one of the best discography in there? This one is hard. Best discography. There's always one song that I do not like, or one CD that I do not like, but a group that I can listen to their music without skipping a song, basically. Okay, there are two groups that I believe have a discography that is well worth checking out, and that I believe is basically all full of hits, or basically all songs are good. Quell, in the Skipro franchise, I'm a massive fan of Takeshi Hama, the composer, and I believe how eclectic yet ethereal the group can be is something that is explored in so many songs, but none of those, you do not have two songs that sound exactly the same, which is really good. And you explore a wide variety of music genres, from lyrical pop to 80s or 90s R&B to 90s hip-hop to even minimalistic electronica. You have even rock. You have everything in there. And you have 4 vocals that work incredibly well together. I wouldn't say they are the best vocals out there, they aren't, but they have a chemistry. They work so well together that you do not notice that there are some weaknesses in their vocal lineup, but you listen to their songs as a whole, and all songs have a really relaxing, really, I would say, it is almost liberating sound. Not necessarily because it is pop rock or something like that. It is really relaxing in the way the songs are presented, and I do love their repertoire up until now. I would say Quell is a really good group for you to check. I believe they have one of the best discographies out there. Then I'm going to add Trigger from the Idolish 7 franchise. Besides, I would say Last Dimension. I'm a big fan of Last Dimension, and I'm not a big fan of Natsu Shiose. Aside from those 2 songs and Ten's solo song, I'm sorry, I do not like that song at all. They have a really good repertoire, really solid, and you can feel their growth from that sexy electronica group, sexy EDM pop group, to their aggressive, intense, dark pop mixed with hip-hop sound in Variant, up until now with a sound more refined and caring, more careful, more emotional. So you have a repertoire that is consistently, I would say, sexy and interesting. It's not bubbly pop, so it's already good in my books. And they have vocally the best lineup 2D group could ever have. Really. The only way it could get any better, it would be to drop Toshiki Toyonaga there. And then it would be hands down the best group ever in 2D music. But as it is one of the best 2D groups out there, and for me it is the group with the best lineup. I would be saying that a good second place would be Lolodi, because they also have one of the most technical lineups there, but they are lacking a bit of chemistry. And when I say that Trigger are better, it's because they do not only have the technique, but they also have the chemistry. And you can tell that when you listen to the songs. Of course, I'm comparing Lolodi with Trigger, which is not fair. They are different music genres, they have different performances, they have different composers, and the things that both groups are required of or are expected to drop are 2 completely different things. But if I am going to talk about groups that have the best discography, Trigger should be in the conversation, because I do love everything they have put, of course, outside of those 3 songs. Lolodi is also another group that I enjoy all the music they have released so far, but their discography is really small in comparison to Quell or even Trigger. A good 4th place would be, I would be pushing a lot if I said this group, Solid, but please ignore the first 2 CDs, because the composer was different. There are some hits and misses here and there in their repertoire. I do enjoy their discography a whole lot, but I wouldn't say it's the best. So I'm going to say 1st place Trigger, 2nd place Quell, 3rd place Lolodi. and those would be the best discographies that 2D groups have. Last question. How are major music labels affecting the 2D music industry? I've been thinking a lot about Gyroaxia's case, and I wonder if there are chances for other 2D bands or units to sign a major label, and if so, how this affects their activities, and if also could affect the industry if this happens more in the future. You make a good point. And the 2D music industry is slowly shifting towards making sure that 2D bands work outside of their 2D music projects, so that when there are problems like there were in 2020 and 2021, in which you couldn't have all members of a project, some projects have 49 members in the cast, so do have that into attention. I'm talking about you, SEIYUU. And of course, there are projects that have a lot of they have a massive cast. Ensemble Stars has 50 plus people, and SEIYUU have 49, if I'm not wrong, people in the cast, which is ridiculous. So if you think like this, if there ever comes another pandemic that makes us all close everything again and makes it so that people can't gather again, you have to have a way to make sure the 2D groups are still making money. But if they can't hold those massive shows, they have to start holding those small live shows, like the Argonavis from Bang Dream franchise now, from Argonavis franchise did during that time, or how the Idolish 7 franchise did, with Trigger having their solo live, Idolish 7 having their solo live, and now Rivale having their solo live. So, solo lives are a good way to cater to a specific type of fan, the fan of only that group, because once again, going back to one of the questions a couple of minutes ago, I'm going to be a fan of some of the groups within a project. If I'm going to watch a live show with all groups performing, I'm going to be finding some of the performances bad because I do not want to watch that performance because I do not like that group, but I'm waiting for the group that I love to hop on stage and perform. Now, so you have that there. So the sound choice is to put the groups playing or performing individually. And with so many projects having so many groups, that's an opportunity for the project to make a load of money. Will that work with all projects? I believe not. There are groups within, for example, the SEIYUU franchise that won't have many fans waiting for them. For example, even the Ensemble Stars franchise. So those are things that will need to be assessed by each franchise and their marketing staff, of course. So you're mentioning, of course, Gracia, Gyroaxia's case. That's a really unique case because I was hoping the rest of the From Argonavis franchise to actually break free from Bushiroad and sign a contract to basically be with a major music label, but nothing happened. So breaking free from Bushiroad was a guise for making sure Gyroaxia would work should the project ever be canned, which is weird. Why only saving Gyroaxia and not the other groups, right? So it sounded more like they wanted to make sure this group is around even if the From Argonavis franchise goes under the bus. More so than giving it a chance because the music is really good and deserves to get a different spotlight on it. But then again, if we have a band signing to a major music label, you are expecting it to be well promoted, and the focus here is on promoting well projects and bands. Imagine, for example, that Kashikomi got to sign a contract with Universal Japan. That's a big music label. It's the one that is representing Gyroaxia. So if that happened, then a project that is not that well known would start becoming known because the music label is going to put more effort into promoting it. Would that be good for some projects and bands that do not have exposure? Perfect, it would be perfect. But that opportunity will only present itself for some bands within some groups. For example, you look at the Utapri franchise, which is the most popular group. Believe it or not, it's Quartet Night. It's the first group in the franchise that actually got to hold their live tours their solo live tours twice, and that actually got #1 for the very first time for that franchise on the singles chart. So if you were thinking as a owner of the music label, you would want to, within that franchise, you want to sign Quartet Night. If anything wrong happens to the pre-franchise, you know that the Quartet Night group will still be yours and will still be active if everything goes wrong. Same thing if you look at Utepri, no. If you look at Idolish 7, you know that the most popular group is Trigger. So you basically sign Trigger to a major music label to make sure that if the Idolish 7 franchise goes down, they are still around performing. And then they will be performing as the characters, or they will be performing as themselves and the characters. It will be weird, but still. Signing to a major music label makes it so that the promotion of the group or the 2D group ends up being a double promotion. So the music label will want the 2D group to appear, but also the 3D counterpart. So the SEIYUU would start performing as a unit, not as the characters, but as a unit as themselves, but also as the characters, which is weird. So music labels would have to weigh in if it is worth signing all groups or only the popular ones within a franchise. Would the franchises be okay with that? Would that be a sign that the franchise may be thinking about the future and are worried about the future? Maybe. That's a way to at least make sure that something is salvageable when the copyright claims begin, or if any copyright claims begin. So I see major major debuts by 2D groups to be a rare thing. I believe that people are looking at Gyroaxis' case and are seeing if that works at all. Seeing how Universal is being really quiet since the release of Freestyle, I do not know if people are thinking about putting their 2D groups signed to major music labels, because after the release there has been a lot of silence, and you do not want silence when you are making a major debut. You want single after single after single, and then a bit of silence to work on an album, even if it is to compile music that was already released but only fans of the group that were following the 2D group actually purchased. Now make a re-release for everyone that is interested. So I do not know if it actually ends up working, but if it ever happens, it will be only to the most popular groups within a project, not all. So thank you very much for your comment, Gracia. And this is all for your questions. There were a lot. Also some comments that I will not be reading because, well, but I've read everything. I'm not reading, of course, on this episode. And thank you very much for your warm words. So now let's check some of your comments for this episode. So, checking your comments, I do have a lot, and I'm going through all of these really quickly, and I'm going to thank you either individually if you made a question or as a whole in the end. So Grecia wrote, we reached 100 episodes so fast! I try to say it whenever I have time to leave a comment, but thank you for the podcast and the site too. It's nice to not only have a place to know the SEIYUU news with neutrality, but also thank you for creating this nice and safe space where SEIYUU fans can learn and share their excitement about their interests. I hope the project continues growing. Growing slowly but surely. Thank you for your comment, Grecia. Mao writes, as a Venezuelan SEIYUU fan who had a hard time back then finding translated SEIYUU content, I am extremely grateful for the job you do, Miss Vanessa. Well, you can treat me as Vanessa, no problem there. You do not need to treat me as Miss. Words can't describe how grateful I am for pages like yours who deliver SEIYUU content in English. Back then, I even had a very hard time trying to find interviews or Japanese SEIYUU music on the internet. That's when I found your page. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your efforts, and thank you for your small talk on Twitter. Well, my small talk on Twitter ends up being a rant, but I've seen you in the comments. So thank you very much for also getting to participating and getting in touch from time to time, and glad that the website and the podcast can in some way basically make a bridge between you and Japanese content through the English language. That was exactly what I wanted to do when I launched the website, so it is nice to see that there are people actually coming forward and saying that, yeah, I actually got to learn more about SEIYUU because of the website that you created. That was exactly what I wanted, to create a website that made it easy for international fans to get into SEIYUU and Japanese music. So if I'm doing that really, if I'm getting your feedback like this, it is because I'm doing my job really well. So thank you very much for actually supporting and finding the website, and of course for the small talk on Twitter as well. Hello, I'm Jess, says, hello Vanessa, I really like to thank you for your hard work feeding us SEIYUU information for years. Yes, I'm the hand that feeds, that's exactly what I'm doing. Your works is really interesting, and for the first time I accidentally went to your website, I am now fond of it. Thankfully that accident was a good one. The first person I viewed was Sakurai Takahiro. Your works are really detailed and amusing, really. Thank you, and we do so much appreciate it all. We will support you in your journey. Have a great day. Happy 100th episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Have fun. I'm having, so right back at you. I hope you are having a load of fun with this episode, although this is really a long one. Angie Pile16 on Twitter says, I really want to participate or talk with you about SEIYUU. I read the last article of SEIYUU Can Sing, and it was amazing finding one person who loves SEIYUU like me, or maybe more than me. Please talk to me if you want. I'm on this way around 7 years. You can also get in the comments on YouTube. I tend to hang out with everyone there, so you're really welcome to do so. I'm also on Twitter, although I do not I'm not that active on Twitter. I am on Twitter, but my activity depends really on how free is my time, but you can find me on Twitter. I will leave the handle on this screen somewhere. Thank you very much for your comment. Carol writes, thank you for doing God's work for the last 12 years. I will never be grateful enough on how much I have learned from you. Por favor, continue fazendo e sendo maravilhosa. Thank you very much. So for everyone that doesn't understand Portuguese, Carol said for me to continue doing and being marvelous. Thank you very much. Portanto, obrigado, Carol, pelas palavras. UFO wrote, congrats on 100 episodes. It's not an easy number to achieve, and definitely not a number someone who has little passion for what they do reaches. I can always see the efforts that you go behind every little thing you do, and I'm actually glad you keep on doing it. Hopefully we will have a lot more episodes and years in store for the Hand That Feeds HQ, and thank you for everything. Thank you very much for your comments, and I really hope that we are here celebrating the 200th episode that will be in 2 years, almost 2 years, so be ready for it. I hope it will be a fun one. Jennifer wrote, thank you for always making SEIYUU content. Thank you very much. I'm doing my best to keep up, but I am sure that I'm not covering everything. But the most that I can cover, at least I want to do a good job, so I am thankful that you are enjoying everything that I'm doing so far. Zen wrote, I just discovered the Hand That Feeds HQ last year, and it really helps me understanding the SEIYUU's world so much. I'm really grateful for it, and thank you very much for the hard work. Thank you very much for actually coming across the Hand That Feeds HQ, and for taking the time to write these nice comments, and thank you very much. And Maki wrote, thank you for always doing this, we'll continue to support you. Thank you. I see your name a couple of times on comments and participation on monthly review, so it's always good to see that there are familiar faces returning to the comments, so thank you very much for being there and participating. Al Sherbert wrote I really love your work. You guys are the #1 review and news website I go to when it comes to male SEIYUU and to the idol projects. Wishing you all the best in your endeavors. There's an issue here because I sometimes am not covering or reviewing the music timely, but I hope that the reviews that you have checked so far have been interesting and have in a way made sure that you want to check a CD, or made it so that you are curious about a certain CD. That would be the ideal. Even when I'm reviewing things and I say that this song is not really the thing that I like, I would love for you to have that curiosity of checking it and see for yourself if you actually click with those songs. So the reviews are there as a guideline, as a way for you to in a way understand some of the complex stuff that is happening in the music, but most of you perhaps actually do know how things work, because there are some people in the comments that usually or visiting the website that actually play music or know how to create music. But it is a way to learn, a way to have fun, and a way for you to actually come across good music. And it is really, really awesome to know that the THTFHQ is your #1 source for music reviews. So I'm glad it happens, and I will try to work towards it continuing being like that. So thank you very much for your comment, Al. We have Judy with a comment. I was wondering if you would be willing to open the THTFHQ Discord server so we could all connect as SEIYUU fans. I know it's a big task for you, and I'm not sure if it will be open to having moderators and other housekeeping things. Personally, I don't know how things will pan out, but I just want to shoot a suggestion in case you wanted to use it. If you see that the negatives outweigh the positives, feel free to ignore this suggestion. Well, for starters, I do not know how to work on Discord, so there's the first thing. I've never used Discord. Then I do know it is a good platform to be in touch with people, but that's where the problems arise. I barely have any free time to interact with others because I do work full-time, so it would be mostly people left to their own devices within the server. Would that work? Would that be interesting? Jury, do let me know in the comments if that would be interesting to have. If you'd like to have other like-minded people within the server and hang out with them, even if I'm not that really present within the server, do let me know that I can make that work in a way that we can also be talking about news or things like that. But do know that my time is really limited to be on any kind of platform. I do not have a lot of free time, so that's an issue. But do let me know if that would be interesting for you to actually be there, but knowing that I wouldn't be as active as you would, for example, would want it. And moderators, if I am creating a server, I would want to have moderators because I would not be there 100% of the time. Maybe log in once a day, maybe. So it would be awesome to have a moderator there. And if you want to volunteer as the moderator, you're getting the job. So do let me know in the comments or get in touch with me on Twitter so that we can work this out and maybe create the THTFHQ's Discord server. Of course, you had another comment, so let's see. Hi Vanessa, thank you for all of your hard work and creating the THTFHQ, an amazing place for SEIYUU fans to get all their news and updates. I can imagine it's a lot of hard work to maintain, especially with your daytime job. Many of us rely on you, and we can't thank you enough for all that you do to promote the SEIYUU community to overseas fans. Hope to continue supporting you and your future endeavors. Here's to another milestone at the THTFHQ. Hope that you'll get more recognition in Japan. Maybe one day you'll get to interview some famous SEIYUUs. One day. I'm aiming for it. I'm hoping it happens, but It's not easy, but let's see how the Hand That Feeds HQ grows. I do not know which people I'm going to meet in the future, so there's a lot of possibilities here, and we don't know what can happen. But I'm working towards having the website more recognized. Of course, the focus would be on international fans, because I write in English. I would love for music labels in Japan to notice that website is actually a reference for many people, and it is a good way to get your reviews, news, and even investigation articles that have little to no opinion of mine, are more hard facts. So I would love for music labels and talent agencies to look at the Hand That Feeds HQ, even the channel, and see that there is value in there. Of course, they look at the numbers, and the channel is still really small. It's only 500 people, and they will look at it and, well, they will not consider the Hand That Feeds HQ as something worth investing in. But I would love for the music labels to get in touch so that we can do great things towards supporting and promoting SEIYUU internationally. So thank you very much for your comments, Judy. And lastly, Lauren, you have 2 observations, so I'm going to read those, and then I'm going to wrap up this episode that is already really long. So thank you very much for your dedication to this podcast. I love being able to learn more about SEIYUU and new 2D music projects, and your podcast is perfect for that. As of writing this, I haven't gotten into the habit of marking certain SEIYUU birthdays in my calendar so that I can talk about them with my friends. Thanks to your Twitter posts, I can know whose birthday it is, which I'm grateful for as a fellow SEIYUU fan. I still do not have every birthday in there. I'm updating that as I go. But it's good to see that a feature that I would believe not many people would actually pay attention to is actually being helpful, and it is actually at the core of the conversations that you have with your friends. So it's a pleasure to actually make it sure that you get the birthdays right of your favorite SEIYUU, or the SEIYUU that you actually are fond of, and that you actually get to enjoy that and have meaningful conversations due to something as simple as posting about SEIYUU birthday. And of course, thank you very much for checking the podcast and following the podcast in some way, and for leaving those kind words. This, of course, is the end of the episode. These were 100 episodes. These were a lot of questions. These were 1 hour, almost 2 hours of content for you. I will not be editing much, so you will be getting the raw, almost raw version, only with cool music in the background so that you do not fall asleep with my voice. So thank you very much for being around for 100 episodes, or for the number of episodes you were around, or for actually being here for this celebration of the 100th episode of this podcast. There are many more episodes to come. You guys actually left a couple of suggestions of content that I believe will have me talking and writing about more male SEIYUU music and 2D music projects in the next couple of months. I would say I have content from you for the next 4 months, which is easy to make. There are a lot of questions that have sub-issues to talk about, so it is really awesome. It is good to see that you guys are interested in getting to know more about the industry, more so than talking about rankings of handsome SEIYUU, or the SEIYUU that you would like to, I don't know, listen to the most, or whatever. Those are really fun things to happen, but this podcast is not that vain. It's more about teaching and learning at the same time, because when I'm researching for an episode, I'm also learning for myself, or revising some things that I knew but I didn't recall. So it is really awesome to continue to create this podcast and continue to deliver episodes on a regular basis without pauses to you. So we're going to keep up with this. There may be some visual changes to the podcast in the next couple of episodes, but other than that, it is the same formula, it is the same content, the same enthusiasm, and of course I look forward to having you participating in the comments if you feel like it. If you do find value in this podcast and you are actually listening on a podcast platform, I would love for you to subscribe and leave a review. I would love to see reviews. Those help give exposure to the podcast so that more people can find it. And if you are on YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe and help this channel grow a lot. And sometime in the future we can talk here about how I got to interview a SEIYUU and you got to ask questions to your favorite SEIYUU. That all ended up happening because the channel grew enough so that music labels can actually pay attention to it and see it as a place worth engaging and interacting with. So I do welcome you to whichever the platform you are, subscribing to the THTFHQ or subscribing to, of course, the podcast SEIYUU Lounge, and leave a review if you feel like it. You don't need to write about it, you can only leave the stars if you want to, but it would be awesome to have genuine reviews there of people that actually like the content and would love to see more people, for example, checking the content. So if you want to actually give a gift to me or to the podcast, I would say subscribing and leaving a review would be awesome. But you are free to do whatever you want, really. So thank you very much for sticking around and watching this episode or listening to this episode from start to finish, and I'll see you guys soon.